Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario 64. In the last part, we went through most of Big Boo's haunt, getting what we could done there before leaving, and now it's finally time for us to go after the first boss fight. You know, only about a third of the way through the game stars. And you do need to do this as the doors to later chunks of the castle are blockaded by key doors, and you get a key for beating any of the given boss fights. And even then, each key will only work on a specific door. Thus, behind the big star door we've been able to open for a while is a painting of Peach. Yay! Wait a second there. Ow!
You stepped right into my trap, just as I knew you would. I warn you, friend. Watch your step.
The Bowser levels are perhaps the purest example of platforming the game has to offer in the long run, as there's no secondary mission in them outside of an 8 red coin mission tied to them that will spawn a star at the end of them. They do get harder as you go in the game, of course, but the big thing is the entire level is located over a bottomless pit, which is technically true for a lot of the game's worlds, but because these are just strictly pure chunks of platform that would later kind of get revisited in the floodless levels in Sunshine, for instance, you really gotta actively pay attention to where you're jumping here, otherwise you're probably gonna fall into the pit and take a death or two. They do get a little devious in these levels about where they place the 8 red coins even compared to the main world, if only because since it's a linear pathway, they have to potentially hide it up in a place you can't see without looking up, or behind a thing you need to curve around and all that jazz. With that said, the first one here isn't too bad. I also love the song. Koopa Road, I believe this is called. I'd say is one of the best songs for Bowser they've made across the franchise. And I'm glad it's kind of become the de facto super intense theme for Bowser stuff in some regards. Especially the Galaxy rendition of it. I adore that one. Like, largely, if it's not this that gets remixed, it's the boss theme against him in some regard, or at least the motif from it's used in his theme. Every now and then you'll see the one from World or the one from 3, but those are a little rarer. Now, veterans of the game will already noticed I missed a specific red coin. It's because I just completely forgot it was there, even though I did a practice run of this level. In specific, it's behind us, past those moving diamond-shaped platforms. In specific, you actively have to get on the yellow block that moves back and forth to that one platform to grab it. I just forgot to grab it because I was a little distracted, because if memory serves, I was recording this on a time limit before I went to work. Like, I had to leave in like 15-20 minutes before I had to leave. And recording during that time period has its pros and cons. For one thing, it helps me wake up a little bit, but also I make a lot more silly mistakes and I overlook a couple more things because I am slightly rushing, even if I'm not meaning to. And I'm gonna keep doing it, but there's times where it showcases in recordings more than others, especially more open-ended games like this. There's just a few more silly misplays you'll see when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, the star for the 8 red coins will spawn right near this pipe, but I missed the one way over there, so I gotta go grab that. Whoopsie daisy. In that regard, what's kind of funny is out of the main Bowser stages in the game, I'd say this is probably the hardest one to go backwards in, if only because of this jump right here being a little scary. Because the other ones in the game, going backwards is pretty straightforward, as there's less threat of open bottomless pit. It's still there, but the platforms are wider, or there's more layers between you and the pit and all that. Because for instance, one of the later levels like this, they stack the platforms on top of each other in roughly the same position back and forth a couple of times. So if you fall down, unless you're on the very bottom, you're just gonna like lose a layer of progress rather than just get a death and lose all progress. In that regard, you could say maybe this is technically the most dangerous of the three because you're just always over the pit, but that's even then a kind of loose way to phrase that. With that said, let's grab ourselves that red coin star and move on to our first boss fight against Bowser. Also, thankfully, they do give you the chance to save after these specific red coin stars. I guess in that regard, they're technically counted like 100 coin stars, programming-wise.
Tough luck, Mario. Princess Toadstool isn't here. Go ahead, just try to grab me by the tail. You'll never be able to swing me around. A wimp like you won't throw me out of here. Never.
Well, Bowser, we gotta do exactly that. Bowser slowly walks at you and will breathe fire here and again. I think he also has a charge attack, but there might be later fights. Run around him, grab him by the tail like he's King Bob-Omb, and then you gotta start rotating the analog stick. It's a little sticky to get used to this, You kind of have to actively wait for Mario to be in the direction you're facing to continue rotating. Like, you gotta kind of give it a slight delay feel-wise. But as you spin and spin, you'll be able to throw him further and further. You've got to let go of him roughly when he's about equal to the bombs on the corners you're aiming for. If you miss, he does jump back on the platform, shaking it and causing you to shake a little bit, but in most cases, he's going to be far enough away from you where he's not going to be able to damage you in that moment where you are stunned, so don't worry about it too much. Aiming with the throw is the worst part of this, in my experience. But a strategy you can use pretty much the entire game is just doing a lot of smaller throws to lead him towards one of the bombs rather than just doing one of the big ones. One shot and he's out of here, at least, in the first fight.
I was a bit careless. This is not as I had planned. But I still hold the power of the stars, and I still have Peach. You'll get no more stars from me. I'm not finished with you yet. I'll let you go for now. You'll pay for this. Later.
And our first boss is done, and we get ourselves our key that allows us to access the next chunk of the castle. You know, I do find it kind of interesting in retrospect that they kind of flip-flop in this game between Princess Toadstool and Peach. It's like Toadstool is technically like her regal title as queen, but Peach is her actual name, seemingly. Even not long after this, they would just kind of go wholesale on Peach, and no more mention of the Toadstool name really exists, except for the rare mention. In that regard, I guess it's a little bit like the Ivo Robotnik versus Eggman thing, where Eggman's the nickname nowadays, and Ivo Robotnik's his actual name. So the key we get from that first boss lets us access the basement. There's a whole chunk of worlds we can access down here, but the funny thing is, I already have enough stars just to go straight into the next Bowser level. But we're not going to deal with that yet. I'm going to take care of all the other levels we can access down here first. And honestly, in some regards, this might be my favorite chunk of the game. Because I think the levels around here do a good job of having very vast platforming challenges while still actively having varied themes as well. Although I'll give it this, it's a weirdly dry area down here for reasons. Wow, you've already recovered that many stars? Way to go, Mario. I bet you'll have us out in no time. Be careful, though. Bowser and his band wrote the book on bad. Take my advice. When you need to recover from your injuries, collect coins. Yellow coins refill 1 piece of power meter, red refill 2, and blue coins refill 5. To make blue coins appear, pound on the blue coin block. Also, if you fall from high places, you'll minimize damage if you pound the ground as you land. In retrospect, I always forget they actually just call the ground pound the ground in this, but ground pound is, I think, even used as early as Sunshine moving forward. So our first dirty business down here is this rabbit. This, I believe, is Mipsy, which I think is an anagram for something. This rabbit we can chase all over the place, and we need to dive in to catch it. Doing so is going to nab us a star. But this little rabbit's surprisingly wily and can escape your grasp very easily. The pathing is slightly random, but at the end of the day, you just gotta chase it until you do. This took me about a minute or two, if memory serves. The really annoying thing is if you try to dive in that little corner over there and miss and hit the wall instead, for reasons. Yow! Unhand me, brute! I'm late, so late, I must make haste. The shiny thing mine, it's mine! Finders, keepers, losers, late, late, late. Ouch! Take it then, a gift from Bowser it was! Now let me be, I have a date, I cannot be late for tea! Subtle Alice in Wonderland reference. About as subtle as a brick to the face, but, you know, at the top of subtlety. I think those are probably the stars that took me the longest to find on my first playthrough, only because I just thought the rabbit was a cute little thing they had down here for cuteness' sake, rather than an actual mechanic. Alright, the first level I want to tackle is in here, in the giant pool of mercury that's in the center of this room. But before we do that, we want to go over to this corner and talk to this toad. As soon as I find the hitbox. Where are you? Mario, don't beat up the poor citizen. Mario. There we are. Hold on to your hat. If you lose it, you'll be injured easily. If you do lose your cap, you'll have to find it in the course when you lost it. Oh boy, it's not looking good for Peach. She's still trapped somewhere inside the walls. Please, Mario, you have to help her. Did you know that there are enemy worlds inside the walls? Yep, it's true. Bowser's troops are there, too. Oh, here, take this. I've been holding on to it for you. Some toads, and by that I mean I believe 2, maybe 3 at most, actively do have stars, which is kind of funny that you can just get the equivalent of 1/70th of the game completion just by talking to an NPC, but hey, I'll take it. Welcome to Course 6 Hazy Maze Cave. This level I did not like on my first playthrough, but honestly, in retrospect, it's pretty small and I don't mind it. Both ways fraught with danger. Watch your feet. Those who can't do the long jump, make your way to the right. Right, work elevator, cloudy maze, left black hole, underground lake. Red circle, elevator 2, underground lake. Arrow, you are here. The maze itself isn't that complex, but they do give you a map here at the very start if you need it. With that said, I'd recommend investigating that sign especially just to get a glimpse of where things are, and especially what the named areas are, as that'll give you a pretty good hint on where you need to go depending on what your mission is. For instance, mission 1 here is Swimming Beast in the Cavern. Thus, we can estimate from that they're probably going to be in the underground lake mentioned on that map, so we need to go the left path to get there more quickly. With that said, you can get to either side from either path at the start, it's a little more roundabout in some cases. Going through this door will get us to the elevator, and they do give you another map here in case you want to use it. You can ride the elevator all the way down. I often opt to just take the fall damage and ground pound at the last second to avoid it. And thus we find ourselves at the underground lake. Swimming in this lake is our beast. I believe they're on the far side of the island, usually to start, at least with the speed I get here, they usually are. The beast here is Dory, a Loch Ness monster slash plesiosaur little guy. They've really Yoshified this thing's design up for the DS version. We need to use Dory to reach the island in the center where the star is. When you get on Dory's back, he'll actively start following the direction Mario's facing. You can ground pound to make him lower his head, and then you can get on it to even further to direct him. We want to jump from Dory's head onto the platform. I know there's some people who weirdly found Dory scary as a kid, and I guess between the kind of ominous atmosphere in the cavern to begin with, on top of just the Sutton dinosaur around the curve, especially in a world that was just a few years removed from the original Jurassic Park, that can be a little intense for some kids. I've always just found him kind of silly looking. He's kind of cute. And our second mission already is the 8 red coin mission. Oh, great. For the 8 red coins, we want to go to the east section of the maze to start. Huh. Weird. Kind of feel like I was in a different country for the last third of a second for an entire week. Is that just me? Weird. Work elevator. For those who get off here, grab the pole to the left and slide down carefully. Whereas most of the 8 red coin missions we've done up to this point take place across the entirety of a given world, Hazy Maze Cave is the first course in the game where it takes place largely in just one centralized location within said world map. Above, automatic elevator. Elevator begins automatically and follows preset course. It disappears automatically too. With that said, that sign and this sign describe the 2 levels this specific 8 red coin mission is split into. Mario, stop punching the sign. Work elevator, danger, read instructions thoroughly. Elevator continues in direction of the arrow pushed. We're going to start with the lower of the 2 levels, which is the elevator that sign was talking about. It's a platform over here that has 4 arrows on it, and when you step on one, it starts moving in that direction and doesn't stop moving until you press another one or it hits a wall. Even though I think if it hits a wall, it'll actively start reversing. We need to get the coins that are obviously visible to begin with, but there are also some hidden in the blocks here. Thankfully, like I've already mentioned, red coins in this game have a pretty good draw distance, so you can actually see most of them before their block can even pop in, which is pretty handy. Be careful of this little sign there, though, because that could make you fall like I just did there. This type of red coin mission, I think, is interesting, especially considering the smaller scale, but sometimes when they do them in the game, the platforming they put them around isn't exactly fun to navigate. Meanwhile, the ones that are usually across an entire course map are, I'd say, much more fun to platform in. With that said, my issue with this one largely comes down to how slow it is compared to most of the other ones in the game. Especially given one of the other red coin missions in this section of the castle. But largely, it's fine. With all the red coins down here grabbed, it's time for us to head up to the second level, where we're going to jump on a kind of bluish-green and yellowy-orange platform that's going to follow those little metal balls we're going to see floating in the sky. What's really annoying about this specific type of platform, though, is the fall, as even if you can survive the direct fall, and with the ability to ground pound at the last second, you basically always can, you still gotta get back up here, and there's not really a super fast way to do that, so there's a punishment, but it's not super punishing. With that said, just staying towards the middle of the platform is gonna be enough until we get to those 2 platforms over there where you do need to do a brief jump upwards. When it comes to this type of 8 red coin mission, I think this is a fine enough tutorial, but I do ultimately kind of prefer the scale of the worldwide ones, if only because they're usually faster to get done. If only because, while this game's worlds do have varying scales, it's always pretty easy to get around them very quickly, either by using the cannons, clever wall, or long jumping especially. It's only really in the last 4th or 5th of the game where the levels get so large in physical scale, where getting from one place to another when there to get red coins actively gets annoying. And even then, in the rare case I revisit Mario 64, good chance I'm either just going for a 70-star run or just trying to do some of the techniques for a lower star count than that, even through specific applications of long jumps near stairs, if you know what I mean. Star 3 in Hazy Maze Cave is a little bit of an oddity within the game itself, as it's going to require our next special cap, but we haven't unlocked that yet. Metalhead Mario Can Move, of course, is going to require Metalhead Mario. But here's the thing, unlike the other 2 special caps in the game, which is the wing cap that we got by looking up at the sky after getting a certain amount of stars, and the third one we'll showcase in a few parts, you actively cannot reach Metal Cap Mario without actually entering Hazy Maze Cave, as the entrance to the secret level and the 8 red coins locked behind it is in this world. And this has just always felt weird to me. Mind you, 1/3 of the power is being tied to that. That's not exactly bad numbers, but it's just kind of weird placement-wise compared to everything else in the game. Interestingly though, our 2 destinations are actually very close to each other. Both the secret level's entrance as well as the star we're looking for in this mission are tied to Dory's Cave down here. While you were riding Dory back in the first mission here in Hazy Maze Cave, you may have noticed, outside of the hill in the middle of the room, there is a door guarded by an iron grate on one side and a door that's higher that you need to ride Dory to reach anyway on the other. We want to go to the higher door as we can actually access that. The door guarded by the iron grate directly, you need to press a switch that's underwater to actively hit that, and we don't have the means to do that at the moment. By getting on Dory's head and going up here, we're going to find ourselves at the secret level in question. Ultimately, though, it's not that big of a deal. I just find the placement of this kind of weird because it's really the only secret in the game that's located within another level like this. In the N64 version, at least, DS adds a number of stars and other little mini levels to the game that require doing things like this a little more regularly. Welcome to the Metal Cap Switch course. Once you step on the cap switch, the green blocks will become solid. When you turn your body into metal with Metal Cap, you can walk underwater. Try it. Metal Mario effectively makes Mario not need to breathe at all. Not only can he just walk underwater, but his HP meter won't decrease from oxygen, but also you can step into things that would otherwise poison Mario, like toxic gas. In fact, if you explored Hazy Maze Cave a little more in depth, you would have already found things like that Metal Mario will now make us immune to. With that said, you need to be careful in this level, as if you get swept up in the current to the opposite side of the map, you actively get thrown out of the level to begin with. I think you head back to the moat just outside of Peach's castle. And while it's not a long backtrack, it's kind of an annoying one. The Metal Cap makes Mario invincible. Now Metal Caps will pop out of all the green blocks you find. Would you like to save? Yes, I would. This in specific is probably the easiest of the 3 hidden levels for a secret cap in the game, though, as the wing cap 8 red coins is such a control adjustment compared to the other 2, and the third one is a much more challenging platforming section than this. So ultimately, Metal Cap Mario is the most straightforward cap to unlock and actively use. Also, it led to one of my favorite songs in Smash 64 because of the Metal Mario fight in that game. God, I love Smash 64's sound design so much. Ultimate's probably better than it nowadays, but there's something just so uniquely bone-crunching about the sound effects in 64. So now that we have Metal Cap Mario, we're gonna once again head back into Hazy Maze Cave and head back down to Dory's room, as we need now to go use Metal Mario in there to reach the star in question we actually went in here for. Once we're in the basement, there's a Metal Mario block just to the side of the elevator we're going to need to use. Namely, we're going to need to take the metal cap and then make a beeline through the water, doing some long jumps and hugging the interior where you can to get to the weight switch that will open up the iron grate in front of the other door down here. Notably though, this is still the easier half of this mission, even with the timer for this being a little strict, as I have died in the room where the star actively is more times than I'd like to admit. As it's a couple of surprisingly precise long jumps for this point in the game, and especially if you're just rushing through it blindly, you might miss up and just fall into the pits and lose either some HP or some lives in the process. Oh god. Careful of that there, momentum. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6 we're gonna finish off Hazy Maze Cave before heading into our next level. See you guys then.